July 1945. The war in the Pacific was in its final bloody days, though none of us knew just how close it was to ending. The USS Indianapolis had just finished what the officers called a special mission. We weren't told much, just orders. Load cargo. Deliver it fast. Don't ask questions. The old sailors whispered that if the brass was this tight-lipped, it had to be something big, bigger than anything we'd carried before, maybe the biggest in history. But to us down in the guts of the ship, it was just another job. You didn't get paid to ask, only to obey. The cargo was dropped at an island we couldn't name, and as soon as it was offloaded, the captain turned us toward the Philippines. That's when the mood on board shifted. You could almost hear the collective sigh of relief. The worst was behind us, we thought. The mission was done, and the ocean stretched out calm and endless under a pale moon. The stars burned clear overhead, and for a night or two, it almost felt like the war wasn't happening. Life aboard a ship is routine, broken only by bursts of chaos. When you're at sea long enough, you get used to the rhythm. The thrum of the engines under your boots, the clang of bells signaling the next watch, the smell of oil, salt, and sweat that never leaves your nose. I was an engine room man, a snipe. That meant heat, grease, and pipes that bled steam. Your shirt stuck to your back, your hands were always blackened, and the air was thick enough to chew. But you didn't complain. You turned the valves, passed the wrenches, kept the heartbeat of the ship steady. That was your pride. The ship lived because you did your job. When you weren't working, you stole moments of normal life. Some guys would sneak a smoke on the fantail, flicking the butts into the waves when the petty officer wasn't looking. Others played cards, slapped each other's backs, and laughed at the dumbest jokes. We had a kid from Oklahoma. Everyone called him Okie. Skinny as a rail, grin like a cracked plate. He could clean out a poker table one hand and lose it all the next with a shrug, like luck was a joke he was in on. Then there was Chief Jaw like a brick, a scar across his chin from some bar fight back when ships were still made of wood. Or so he claimed after a few cups of bitter coffee. He never smiled much, but when he did, it was sharp and mean, like steel flashing in the dark. Some men kept pictures tucked by their racks, wives in dresses, kids with ears too big for their heads, even a dog or two. Me, I had a postcard of a beach I'd never seen. Something about it felt soft, safe, like a world I'd reach someday if I just kept moving forward. It was stupid, but when you woke up with your mouth dry and your body aching, your eyes needed somewhere to rest. That postcard was mine. Meals were powdered eggs, tough bread, and coffee so bitter it could peel paint. Nobody liked it, but you ate anyway. Hunger was worse. Between bites, the mess hall buzzed with gossip, cursing, and laughter. For those brief minutes, you forgot the war. You forgot the possibility of dying tomorrow. You were just a man with a tray, trading jokes with the guy beside you. The sea was calm that week, sometimes flat as glass, reflecting the sky until it felt like we were sailing through another world. Gulls circled lazy, white scraps against the blue. On those days, it was easy to believe the war was far away, easy to think about home, about peace. That was the trick the ocean played. It lulled you, rocked you into believing you were safe. But underneath, it was always alive, always waiting. By night, the ship hummed like a big cat, steady and sure. Some of us lay on deck, staring up at the stars. No light pollution, no noise but the waves and the faint whine of steel. The Milky Way stretched across the sky, so bright it looked painted. You felt small then, smaller than a bug. But you also felt connected, like the universe was letting you glimpse a secret. For a few minutes, you forgot the sweat, the stink, the war. For a few minutes, you could breathe. But peace never lasts at sea. You learn that quick. One day you're laughing at a dumb joke. The next you're staring death in the face. We didn't know it then, but the calm we enjoyed, the routine we clung to, it was just a curtain. Behind it, something waited, something no man had words for. The night it happened was quiet. Too quiet. No wind, no gulls, just the sound of the ship cutting through black water. I remember standing at the railing, cigarette glowing in my fingers. When the hair on the back of my neck rose, it wasn't fear yet, just a feeling. The ocean stretched endless in every direction, dark as tar, and I had the sense we weren't alone. The others felt it too. Oki joked about ghost waves. Chief muttered that the sea had moods. But none of us laughed very hard. We thought the danger was behind us. We thought the war was almost over. What we didn't know was that something older than any war, older than any nation, had been following us. Watching, waiting for the moment the steel would fail and the men would be left alone in the water. That night, July 1945, was the last night we knew peace. The last night we believed the worst the sea could throw at us was torpedoes, fire, or sharks. Because the real nightmare was still waiting. The night it happened started like any other. The sea was calm, the air thick and heavy, and the ship cut forward under the stars like a black arrow. Most of the crew had settled into routine, some sleeping in their racks, some smoking on deck, some hunched over cards or swapping stories that had been told 100 times before. Nothing unusual, just another night in the endless Pacific. But the ocean has a way of turning on you in a heartbeat. A little after midnight, the first torpedo hit. No warning, no flash of light on the horizon, no sound of an approaching engine, just a bone-shaking explosion that tore through the steel hull like paper. One moment we were steady, the next the deck bucked under us, throwing men from bunks, slamming bodies into bulkheads. Pipes screamed, steam hissed, alarms shrieked. Then came the second torpedo, louder, deadlier. The ship groaned like a wounded animal, the sound of tearing metal mixing with the cries of men too stunned to move. I remember the heat first. The blast had ripped into the fuel tanks and the engine rooms. Fire roared through the ship, filling the air with smoke, so thick you couldn't see your own hands. Men coughed, choked, stumbled blindly, desperate to find a way out. Somewhere in that chaos, someone shouted, "She's going down." And she was fast. Water rushed in through the torn open hull, black and merciless. You could hear it flooding the compartments, swallowing everything in its path. Men scrambled up ladders, fought their way down narrow corridors lit by the flicker of fire. Some never made it, trapped behind twisted steel, screaming as the water surged higher. Others leapt blindly into the sea, the only thought in their heads, escape before the ship drags us under. I was one of the lucky ones. Or maybe unlucky, it depends how you look at it. I stumbled topside through smoke and heat, the deck tilting beneath my boots. The stars above were still so clear, so peaceful, like the universe didn't care what was happening below. Flames lit the night, black smoke curling upward as if trying to choke out the heavens. Men were everywhere, shouting, praying, cursing, some frozen in shock, some running, some throwing themselves overboard. The ship listed hard, leaning as though she wanted to roll on her side and give up. I caught sight of Oki, his grin long gone, his face pale in the firelight. "Jump," he screamed, before diving headfirst into the black water below. The order to abandon ship was never officially given. We didn't have time. The USS Indianapolis was too badly wounded. In just 12 minutes, the pride of the fleet was sinking beneath the waves. 12 minutes. That's all it took to turn 1,200 men into prey for the sea. I hit the water hard, the shock of it like a slap to the skull. Salt stung my eyes, my nose, my mouth. For a second I thought I'd drowned right there, but instinct pulled me upward, and I broke the surface, gasping. Around me, chaos. Hundreds of men thrashing in the dark, oil slicks burning on the water, flames lighting patches of sea like floating infernos. The ship was still going down, her bow lifting, her stern dragging deep, screams carried across the waves, desperate, hopeless. And then she was gone. The Indianapolis slipped beneath the surface with a groan, as though she was sighing her last breath. The water surged, pulling men down, sucking at our legs with terrifying force. Some never came back up, others surfaced coughing, eyes wide, arms flailing, and then silence. Just the crackle of fire, the slap of waves, and the sound of hundreds of men gasping for air in the black Pacific night. That was when it sank in. We were alone. No lifeboats, no radio call. No one knew we were out here. 12 minutes, and the ship was gone. And with her went every ounce of safety we thought we had. I clung to a piece of floating debris, splintered wood from the wreck, and tried to steady my breath. Around me, men called out for friends, for help, for God. Some prayed, some cursed. Some just floated in stunned silence, too shocked to speak. The oil slick coated our skin, burned our eyes, filled our lungs with every breath. The taste of it was thick, foul, unforgettable. Dawn came slow, painting the horizon with pale light. That's when the full horror revealed itself. Hundreds of us bobbed in the open ocean, scattered, broken into small groups, clutching rafts that had half inflated or clinging to nothing but planks of wood. The water stretched out endless in every direction. No land, no ships, just sky and sea. The sun rose higher, and with it came the heat, blazing, merciless, pounding down on skin already, raw with salt and oil. Thirst clawed at our throats. But the only water around us was the ocean, and that was poison. Men who tried drinking it grew sick quick, their bodies betraying them as the salt tore through their insides. The rest of us watched, helpless, knowing we might be next. But as the hours turned to the first day, we realized thirst and hunger weren't our biggest enemies. The ocean was alive. Beneath us, around us, things stirred. At first it was just shadows, slipping below the surface, then fins cutting slow circles through the water. Sharks, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Some men panicked, thrashing, screaming, only drawing the predators closer. Others went silent, huddled together in tight groups, hoping numbers would protect them. But we all knew the truth. The sharks weren't the worst of it. Not yet, because every now and then, the sharks would scatter. They'd vanish into the depths as if fleeing something else, something bigger. And when that happened, the water went still in a way that made your skin crawl, like the ocean itself was holding its breath. We didn't know it then, but the real nightmare had only just begun. The first day in the water felt endless. The sun burned down on us, blistering our skin. Salt gnawed at every cut and scrape. Thirst set in almost immediately, an ache that grew sharper with each hour. Some men begged for water, some prayed for clouds, some just stared at the horizon, empty-eyed, as though willing a ship to appear, but there was nothing. Only ocean. And then the sharks came. At first, they kept their distance. Dark shapes moving beneath the surface, shadows gliding in wide circles. You'd catch a fin here, a ripple there, someone would whisper, "Shark," and we'd all go still, hardly daring to breathe. For a while they only circled, like they were waiting, like they knew they had time. But sharks don't wait forever. The first attack came fast. A scream cut through the waves, sharp and desperate. We turned, but it was already too late. A man flailed, water frothing around him. Then he was yanked under in an instant, just gone. A swirl of bubbles, a patch of red spreading across the sea. The panic that followed was worse than the attack. Men kicked, splashed, clawed at each other to get closer to the center of the group. Some cried out for help, others for their mothers. The water churned with fear, and the sharks smelled it. More fins broke the surface, circling tighter, faster. Every splash, every drop of blood drew them closer. All we could do was huddle together, back to back, hoping that staying in a group might keep them away. Some prayed out loud, voices shaking. Others cursed God entirely. The bravest tried to calm the rest, whispering that the sharks would lose interest, that they'd leave us alone. But none of us believed it, not really. The hours stretched, and the attacks kept coming. A man on the edge of the group screamed as something tore into his leg, dragging him down. Another vanished beneath the waves, before anyone even realized he was gone. One by one, we were being picked off. The ocean became a feeding ground, and we were the meat. But then something strange happened. Every so often, the sharks would scatter. Not because we fought them off. We couldn't. Not because they'd had their fill. They fled, vanished into the depths like scared dogs. At first we thought maybe it was chance. Maybe we got lucky. But then it happened again and again, always the same. The sharks circling, then bolting like something far worse had entered the water. The silence afterward was worse than the attacks. No fins, no movement, just a heavy stillness pressing down on us. Men held their breath, eyes darting across the water, waiting for something, but nothing came. Not right away. It was Oki who said it first. His voice was low, shaky, like he didn't want anyone to hear but couldn't hold it in. "It ain't just sharks out here," he whispered. "There's something else. Something bigger." No one laughed. No one called him crazy, because deep down we all felt it too. That night, as darkness fell, the fear grew worse. We couldn't see the fins anymore, but we could hear the splashes, the screams that cut off too suddenly. And sometimes, something else. A sound deeper, heavier, a groan from beneath the waves that rattled in our bones. Like the ocean itself was speaking. Some men swore they saw shadows pass under them, massive shapes blotting out the faint light of the moon. One survivor swore he felt something brush against his legs, a hide like sandpaper, but broader, heavier, colder than any shark could be. We didn't know what it was, but whatever it was, the sharks were afraid of it, and that was enough to terrify us even more. By the end of the second night, we were fewer. Every hour, men vanished into the dark, pulled under by teeth we could see, and by something we couldn't. Exhaustion set in. Thirst gnawed at us. Madness crept in. Some men muttered to themselves, swearing they saw lights on the horizon, ships waiting just out of reach. Others laughed, cracked, and broken, until the laughter ended with a splash. But me? I just clung to my little piece of wood, staring at the black water, listening to it breathe, because by then, I was certain. Sharks weren't the real monsters here. Something older was watching us, something the sea had hidden for centuries. And it was hungry. By the third night, we were ghosts in the water. Our lips cracked, our skin burned raw from the sun, our eyes swollen from salt. Some of us floated silent, barely clinging to life. Others drifted into madness, whispering nonsense or singing old songs with broken voices. Hope was thinning fast, like the horizon itself was swallowing it whole. But the sea was done with us. It started with a sound, a low groan, deeper than thunder, rolling up from beneath. It didn't belong to the wind or the waves. It came from below, from something alive. The water vibrated against my ribs, like the ocean itself had a heartbeat. Men froze, eyes wide, every whisper cut short. We just listened, waiting. Then the water rose. Not waves, not swells. Something pushed from underneath, something huge. A shadow darker than night passed beneath us, blotting out the faint glimmer of moonlight on the surface. It was broad, wider than our whole group, sliding under with a slowness that made my stomach twist. Sharks scattered in all directions. They didn't hunt, they didn't circle. They fled, tails whipping as if the devil himself had surfaced. And then it came. The first real look. At first my brain said, whale, big, gray, silent. But no whale carried teeth like that. A jaw broke the surface, massive, pale, bristling with blades that shone like knives in the moonlight. They were long, too long, jagged and uneven, not like the neat rows you'd see in a shark. These looked wrong, ancient, teeth made for ripping, tearing, crushing. The head was broad, ridged, scarred by time. Water cascaded down its face as it rose higher, higher still, until I thought it might blot out the sky itself. Then it opened its mouth. And the sound? God help me, the sound. Not a roar, not a bellow. It was a rush, a cavern collapsing, air and water rushing through a throat wide enough to swallow a truck. The sea shook with it, and so did we. Some men screamed, some prayed, some just went silent, too paralyzed to make a sound. And then it struck. One man, Miller, I think, was gone in an instant. The thing surged forward with terrifying speed, its jaws closing around him and two others in the same bite. No thrashing, no fight, no struggle, just silence, like they'd never been there at all. A spray of water, a red stain spreading, then nothing. Chaos erupted. Men kicked and flailed, breaking from the group, trying to escape. Chief yelled hoarsely for everyone to stay together, but fear shattered discipline. Some swam blindly into the night, their cries cutting off one by one. Others went still, closing their eyes as though waiting for the end. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I just stared as the beast circled back, its fin cutting through the water like a blade, taller than a man, leaving a wake that rocked us like a storm. It came again, this time from below. The water bulged, lifted, then exploded upward as a man was thrown clear into the air, screaming. For a split second, he seemed to fly, arms reaching, eyes wide. Then the beast rose under him, jaws snapping shut mid-scream. Gone. The splash that followed drenched us, salty and warm with blood. "Stay close." Chief's voice cracked, broken but still commanding. He grabbed me by my collar, pulling me into a knot with two others. We clung like shipwreck wood, too weak to fight, too terrified to do anything but hold on. The beast circled again, slowly, patiently, like it was counting us. Every pass sent ripples that shoved us apart, then drew us back together. Every shadow beneath sent chills down our spines. We knew it could strike whenever it wanted. We were just toys, waiting. Minutes felt like hours. The moon sank lower, casting the sea in half-darkness. Every sound, every splash sent panic through our veins. Then, just as suddenly as it came, the beast sank again. The water stilled. The night went quiet. No one spoke. No one dared. I don't know how long we floated like that, barely breathing, waiting for it to rise again. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. Time had no meaning anymore. But I remember Chief's eyes, hollow and wide, staring into the black water. His lips barely moved, but I heard him. "It's Set's not done," he whispered. "It's Set's waiting." And I believed him. Because in that silence, in that dead calm, I could still feel it. Watching. Somewhere below. The hours after that attack blurred together, but none of us closed our eyes. Sleep was gone, ripped out of us, along with whatever hope we had left. Every man still floating had the same look, wide, glassy eyes, lips trembling, waiting for the water to boil again. We didn't talk anymore. Words felt dangerous, like they might draw it back. All we had was the sound of waves lapping against our vests, the faint slap of water as someone shifted, and the pounding of our own hearts. The sharks had returned, but they weren't bold like before. They lingered far off, circling at a distance, waiting for scraps. It told us something. Even the ocean's killers were afraid to get close. Now, that thought chilled me worse than the night air. I tried to count how many of us were left. Maybe a dozen, maybe less. But the truth was, numbers didn't matter anymore. The beast wasn't going to let us all see dawn. We all felt it. One man broke the silence. A young kid, I never learned his name, maybe 19 at most, started whispering a hymn, soft and shaky. His voice cracked, but he kept going. Eyes shut tight, as if the words might shield him from what waited below. Another sailor snapped at him, told him to shut up, that the singing would call it back. The two argued weakly, voices rising, fear spilling out like blood in the water. That seps, when the sea stirred again. The hymn stopped. Every breath froze. A ripple grew, slow and wide, rolling under us like the ocean itself was turning. I clutched the shoulders of the man beside me, Chief still gripping my collar with iron hands, even though his strength was failing. His jaw was set, but his eyes betrayed him. He was scared. We all were. The water erupted. This time, it didn't lunge at us directly. It came up between two scattered groups, splitting them apart with a wall of black flesh. A fin bigger than a man's body carved the sea in half, sending men spinning in the waves. Their screams rang out, raw and desperate. The beast didn't even bite. At first, it just swam through us, circling tighter and tighter, its massive back breaking the surface like the hull of some sunken ship come alive. Then, quick as a lightning strike, it struck again. One sailor vanished beneath the churn, yanked down so fast he didn't even scream. Just a splash, a hand shooting up once before disappearing forever. Another man tried to swim away, arms flailing in the moonlight. For a moment, he looked like he might make it. Then the water beneath him lifted, and a mouth the size of a house swallowed him whole. His cry cut short as the sea turned red around us. The group shattered. Panic broke every fragile bond we had left. Men swam blindly in every direction, convinced distance would save them. Some kicked so hard, they stripped their life vests off in the struggle. Others just floated, paralyzed, too weak to fight. The beast didn't rush. It didn't need to. It picked us off at its leisure, circling, striking, vanishing, then returning again. Chief pulled me close, shouting hoarsely into my ear, "Stay tight, don't let it single you out." His voice cracked, but his grip was strong, his will unbroken. Another sailor latched onto us, eyes wild with terror, clinging so hard I could barely breathe. The sea grew quiet again, but it was the wrong kind of quiet. The kind that smothers you, the kind that says the storm hasn't passed. It's just crouched, waiting to strike again. And then it did. From the depths, a shadow rose so vast it felt like the entire ocean was moving. The beast surged upward, its back breaking the surface like a black mountain. Water cascaded down its ridges and scars as it twisted, jaws snapping wide. For an instant, the moon caught its eyes, pale, empty, not like any predators I'd ever known. They weren't hungry eyes, they were patient, cold, ancient. 3 men vanished in that strike. The rest of us spun in the waves, coughing, choking, flailing to find each other again. When the water stilled, only 5 of us remained. 5 out of hundreds. And in that moment, I understood. It wasn't hunting us out of need. It wasn't feeding because it was starving. No, this thing was playing with us, testing us. It could have ended us all in a single sweep, but it didn't. It came, it took, it circled, it left, like a cat with mice, dragging it out, savoring our fear. I felt my mind cracking under it, my chest tight, breath ragged, eyes burning with salt and exhaustion. Chief Sepp's hand shook as it clung to me, but he still whispered, voice raw and broken, "It wants more." And I knew he was right. Because somewhere beneath the black surface, I could still hear it. That low groan, that impossible hum, not fading, not gone. Waiting. The night dragged on like it would never end. Every second felt stretched thin, pulled until it was ready to snap. The sea was too quiet, and every ripple, every faint splash made us jerk our heads like hunted animals. My body ached, my skin burned, my lips were torn raw, but worse than all of that was the waiting. The beast hadn't struck again. Not yet. And that was the cruelest part of it, knowing it could rise at any moment. The silence wasn't safety, it was suspense. We floated in that silence until the black sky softened, until the stars bled pale and a dull gray light began to seep across the horizon. Dawn, for the first time in days, I saw the sun as something holy, a fire that might finally burn the darkness away. I dared to believe maybe, just maybe, we had lived through the worst of it. There were 5 of us left. Chief, me, 2 others, clinging to each other like brothers, and 1 sailor who barely moved anymore, eyes glassy, lips too dry to part. His chest rose shallow, like a dying ember. I don't even remember his name. That's the cruelty of it. I can still see his face, but his name is gone, like the ocean swallowed even that. Then I heard it. At first I thought my mind was playing tricks. A faint buzz, thin, high, unreal. But then it grew louder, sharper. I lifted my head and squinted at the brightening sky. A plane, a navy bird, low on the horizon, sweeping the sea with its eyes. I sobbed, a sound ripped out of me, ugly and broken. The man beside me screamed until his throat cracked, waving his arms weakly above the water. Chief slapped me hard across the face, not out of cruelty, but to snap me back. His voice rasped, hoarse and shredded. "Save your strength. Wave when it sits close." We did, every last ounce of strength we had, arms flailing, voices raw. The plane circled, dipping low. For a breathless second, I thought it hadn't seen us. Then it banked, dipped its wings once, twice, a signal. It saw us. Relief hit me like a tidal wave. My body trembled, laughter and sobs tangling in my throat. We weren't alone anymore. Rescue would come. We were going to live, but the sea wasn't set done. The water pulsed beneath us, stronger than before, not violent, deliberate, like something massive moving just under the surface. I felt it in my bones, deep and heavy. Chief's face went pale, his lips shaped words he didn't say out loud. It steps back. The plane circled overhead, oblivious. It didn't see the shadow growing beneath us. A shape so vast it looked like the ocean floor itself was rising. Then it passed directly under us. A wall of flesh, cold, smooth, ancient. My legs brushed against it, and I almost fainted from the terror. The thing wasn't rushing, wasn't attacking. It was showing itself. As if to remind us, "Isip's still here." The fin cut the water in a wide arc, taller than a man, slicing past us so close the spray slapped our faces. For a moment, the entire horizon felt swallowed by its shadow. Then it sank again, slow, steady, unhurried. The water calmed, the groan faded, and it was gone. The plane circled again, dropping smoke markers into the water nearby. Hours later, the rescue ship arrived. I barely remember being hauled out, rough hands under my arms, the scrape of rope against my vest, boots thudding on the deck above me. My vision blurred, my ears roared, and the first clean breath of air in days nearly broke me. But even as they wrapped blankets around my shoulders, even as men poured water past my lips, I couldn't stop staring at the ocean. Because I knew that thing wasn't finished. It had let us go. Not because it had to, because it wanted to. Like it was sparing a few of us, so we would remember, so we would tell the story, so its shadow would never really leave the sea. Chief leaned close, his skin gray, his voice no more than a rasp. "We weren't meant to see that," he whispered. "Not us, not anyone." Then he closed his eyes, and for a moment I thought he was gone. But me, I couldn't close mine. Because every time I did, I saw it again, rising, waiting, watching. Years passed. I lived a life, married, had children, worked a job that felt small compared to the sea. People told stories of monsters, of ghosts, of creatures in the deep, and I laughed along like everyone else. Easier that way, easier to pretend. But nights were harder. Nights stretched long, sleep came slow, and when it did, it brought the groan, that sound, that deep, bone-rattling hum rising from the black. I'd wake with salt on my lips, with screams echoing in my ears, with faces floating in the dark behind my eyes. Oki's grin, the boy who sang hymns, Chief's hollow stare, and always, behind them, a shadow. The Navy told the papers it was torpedoes. Said sharks finished the job. Sharks, easy word. A word people could live with. Sharks made sense. Sharks could be measured, counted, explained. But this didn't fit in reports. It didn't fit in history. No one wanted to believe something older than men still hunted the sea. So we shut our mouths, swore silence. Some of the survivors denied it completely. Others drowned their memories in drink. Chief barely spoke at all. He carried it with him like an anchor until the day he died. Me? I kept it locked up for years. But time wears you down. Age makes you careless. Sometimes the memories spill out when I don't mean them to. Sometimes I talk too much when the night's too long and the whiskey's too strong. And now you know. So here sits my warning. The Pacific is too wide, too deep, too ancient for us to ever drain it of what sleeps down there. Scientists can talk about fossils, about teeth turned to stone in museums. They can say the giants died out millions of years ago. But fossils don't groan in the night. Fossils don't circle knots of men. Fossils don't bite through sailors like paper. We saw it, we lived. That sips the curse. So if you ever find yourself at sea, when the water is too still, when the night is too quiet, when the air hums low in your chest like the world itself is growling, don't lean over the rail. Don't look for shadows. Because the beast is still out there. Waiting. Hungry.